This is a presentation from the Supernaut Network.
Welcome to the Imaginarium, the show where art, technology, and creativity intersect, then combine to forge a conversation that can only be found in the Imaginarium. I'm your host, Scott Colbert, and today's guest is retired Canadian filmmaker, writer, and owner of the best hair in indie filmmaking, Alfredo Salvatore Arcilesi. Welcome to the show, Alfredo.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me. That's actually, what was that last part? The hair bit? That was great.
The best hair in indie filmmaking, although I guess... I
got to start charging now. That's what I got to start doing.
Well, you really need to start your own line of hair care products.
You know what? I just might start doing that. I think that with the amount of endorsements that have been coming my way lately, I think I could, I don't know, maybe fund a project that way.
Yeah, I mean, since you're no longer filmmaking, I mean, you know, that's a good way to make some cash.
Absolutely, I agree.
So, aside from the hair, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Born and raised in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So I just want to, like I normally do when I'm speaking to an American friend, out and about. So we got that out of the way. Okay. I always have to do that because, you know, coming into to New York as frequently as I do, everyone always points out the accent that obviously I don't notice until, of course, I'm surrounded by everyone else who points it out. But yeah, born and raised Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Grew up with pretty tight knit family. The arts wasn't necessarily a thing in our family. Not that it was condemned or anything like that, but you know, my grandfather, my uncle, stemmed from a sort of auto mechanic background. I have other uncles in sort of just carpet upholstery working and all that kind of stuff. So I'm grammatically not in tune right now, so give me some time. But so very kind of working class. And fell into film when hockey, which I was playing for 10 years, fell apart, got injured, and very typical sort of story. And from that point on, I kind of found some sanctuary in music. And then after playing drums for a band that went nowhere for 2 years and writing lyrics for that band, I decided to translate those lyrics into short stories, which translated into short films. And then whatever music that I learned how to play, I transposed to piano, taught myself piano, and started making short films. And for the past 7-8 years, just churning out the projects and gradually making my way to film festivals, so on and so forth, and leading right up to this very conversation. So pretty bulky bio if I decide to go into it.
You pick all the easy careers: hockey, writing, filmmaking. Sure,
I know, right? I mean, that's exactly what my dad and several others have pointed out to me. And I was very fortunate to be in a family where there wasn't any intense pressure to seek a certain job or money category or anything like that. Although in retrospect, I kind of wish there was a little bit more of a structure or rigidity.
Now, what was it that made you decide to go from writing into filmmaker?
Honestly, I think the time that I started to go into filmmaking was in my last year of high school. And I really didn't know where to go from that point on. I mean, again, I'd spent most of my younger life, playing hockey, excelling at that, really passionate. And it was really tough to have all those posters and paraphernalia and personal trophies and whatnot of hockey, on my wall, and then not know where to go after that after the injury. Writing was something that I'd always done. I had a knack for that since I was a little kid, like 5, 6 years old. Grew up reading the R.L. Stine Goosebump books, which like a lot of kids I'd grown up with. And I just decided that I needed an outlet. And I think I didn't realize I had a lot more to say than I ever thought I would. And at first it was, fun and writing horror stories and, really, really light fiction in that sense. And then after a while, I developed sort of, social commentary, if you will, where I just started really observing people and things and situations around me, a lot of stuff that started to bother me. And I think one of my biggest qualms was becoming something extremely unoriginal. And we always know about the teenager who has that angst and that rebellious attitude, and they think they know it all. And I actually tried really hard not to be that. That translated into my writing. So where everyone was going left, I went right, and that fell into my writing. So to go to filmmaking, I needed, I guess, more of a visual element or visual output, because writing wasn't enough. I needed to show people that the writing worked, to give it a voice, to give it a soundtrack, and to give it a feel. That's how I fell into filmmaking, more or less.
You're retiring from filmmaking and going back into writing. So you're kind of coming full circle.
Yeah, I am. I think, like I said, writing has always been there from a very, very early age. The more and more I accumulated experience in film, the more I realized that I enjoyed writing all the more because of the politics of the people, and a whole bunch of other reasons involved. And writing is something that is a solo effort, something that is extremely personal, or it should be. And I found that the films that I was starting to kind of write weren't for me anymore. They were to please others. I didn't really want to do that anymore. Therefore, I said, well, I'm going to start the whole novel writing thing again, which was, well, not again, for the first time. A lot of people had suggested that I take to writing a novel because the scripts were really detailed. A lot of the films had a lore that could easily be expanded upon. And the irony would be that if a novel were to be completed, down the line, that could be turned into a film by a third party, not me, but someone else. So maybe film would be in the future somehow.
Now, I was talking with Steve Kahn yesterday, a filmmaker out of Los Angeles. One of the things that we were talking about was writing. He's tried writing novels, and he writes his own scripts, and he finds it very difficult to go from script writing to novel writing. Now, do you have that problem, or is it easy for you to go between the two?
It's a very good question. I'll say this. Writing a script, I've always considered it to be the bastard son of novel writing. It's very skeletal, very without its juice. And when I'm writing an outline for a script, for example, I'm writing 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, however many pages at a time, just in my outline and note-taking for myself that go into really big detail. And I would think to myself, well, I'm writing all this heavy detail that barely even makes it into the script. There's a lot of great, I know it sounds very vain me saying this, but there's a lot of great description or dialogue or just details in the fabric of the writing that just don't make it into the script, and then they don't even make it into the film. I mean, watch any great film or any, really bad film. I mean, maybe it's possible that the script, and I've read quite a few, the script is actually quite well written. It's just that, the words themselves, aside from dialogue, don't necessarily make it to the to the screen. So for me to translate into novel writing is actually probably something I've always been doing, which is kind of writing a novel, stripping away the fat, and having some semblance of that in the form of a screenplay. No matter how many times I write a script, one of the things I always hear from people is, it's too bulky, it's too bulky, it's too bulky. So even if I impose rules upon myself, like no dialogue grouping is going to be more than 3 sentences, or no description is going to be more than, 3 lines or whatnot, still not good enough. So, truth be told, I just said, fuck it, not doing this anymore, and writing novels. And writing a script has been the equivalent of being in a jail cell and having the key the whole time to get out. That's how I'll put it.
That's a good way to put it, definitely. But you still have a really good body of film work behind you. And I haven't seen everything of yours. I've seen 3 pieces. The first one I want to talk about, I think it might be one of the earliest things you did, was Scent of Rosemary.
Yes, that was the third film.
The subject matter in that is really something that took me by surprise.
Okay.
I don't know that any any filmmaker would have had the balls to have made that movie, because it's very, very disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk about that a little bit? What was the idea for Scent of Rosemary originally? I think it was a newspaper article.
Yeah, newspaper article. Actually, it was a broadcast, and there were several articles as well, not about the same case. But what had happened was I was looking to do my third film, and the first two had some moderate success, played a couple of festivals and whatnot, and I still wasn't feeling like I was up to snuff with what it is I wanted to accomplish creatively and story-wise. So it just so happened, as anything else seems to happen, a newscast came on about a pedophile who was released from prison, and he stated in his that if he were to be released, he would commit the same atrocity again. And less than 24 hours after that, he was back in jail for harming a child. And it really pissed me off because just like so many things in this world, first of all, that's very fucked up. And, second of all, so many things can be prevented. So many things. And the fact that a little kid was out there, unbeknownst to anybody else, unbeknownst to that pedophile up until he met that kid, and now has whatever memories associated with that, really pisses me off. There's no excuse for it. And I decided to kind of punish and condemn these people in this film, Scent of Rosemary, which took us through the lives of three guys from three different generations, three different ideas and concepts about their world of pedophilia. So you had the new age, you had the uncertain kind of nervous type, and then you had the ingrained older generation who was just, it was just like nothing else. It was like business as usual. And that film was a test for many actors who claimed that they weren't bothered or nothing could bother them. It was a test for festivals who claimed that they would show anything, but they never showed it. And I, for myself as a creator, felt really proud of it. I still do. I think it garners the reaction that I'm looking for, and it's not to glorify these pricks. It's simply to show that these people, they're to the left and right of us. We shake their hands. We sip from their glasses of wine when we visit them. We just don't always know it. And that's a little bit of Scent of Rosemary.
And one of the stars of that is somebody that you've worked with since then, Robert Nolan.
Right.
And
Robert Nolan, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, he was fantastic. How he's not more well-known, I don't know, because everything that I've seen him in so far has been nothing less than amazing. Why he isn't all that well-known is sort of a statement on our indie film scenes, perhaps in Toronto or just in general, but I won't get into that at the moment. I just think that, Robert Nolan had balls, is what he did. He challenged me. He actually made me think of things and people and concepts and how to develop those concepts in such a way that for a long while, for the next few films, I would actually sit at the computer writing up an idea. Little Robert Nolan thought bubble would pop up, and I would think of, what would Robert Nolan say? And, how would he test me as, it's not just as an actor, but as a person. So I respect him in that manner, and he stepped up. I had worked with him one time before. We didn't see each other for a couple of years after that, and that time before he was only in a nondescript role, really, and he stepped in after several actors had passed on the material. Was there any thoughts when you were making Scent of Rosemary that maybe you were going too far?
No, not at all. I have always had a no holds bar mentality, where no subject is too taboo. And again, it's not to get attention or to glorify or to have any sort of, positivity in that light. I just want to talk about topics that are known, or maybe not at all known, but I think people should be aware. I think in a certain context, to talk about pedophiles think everyone has this idea, like we've seen it all before. It's kind of like the music video version of it. You know, we see, what do we see? A door opening, a little girl in the background, looking or not looking at the man, you know, in the foreground, and then the door closing, and we get the idea. Well, that's all fine and great and artistic and all, but I'm more interested in showing and experiencing what goes on behind the door. It's not because I'm a pervert, it's not because I'm sick or have some sort of, you know, twisted pleasure over it. It's because that is what makes people remember, and it makes them act, hopefully act. I mean, just the other day, I posted a video of dogs being skinned for their fur coats and the treatment and all that kind of stuff. And there were a few people who obviously reacted to it and couldn't watch the whole thing, or why would you share this? I don't need to see this, and so on and so forth. And I think that says enough right then and there. I think that it proves that, you know, things need to be shown, need to be seen, because I would never say to someone who is dying of cancer, oh, I could imagine what you're going through. No, I fucking can't. Not at all. There's no way. Even if I saw it for myself, I can't imagine. But seeing it will put a different light on it. And that's what's interesting to me the most.
Well, it's certainly a powerful piece, and that's up on your website. And we'll have a link to your website on the show page. First thing that I saw, though, was For Clearer Skies. And I remember after I saw that, I messaged you on Facebook and just kind of raved about it like a little fangirl. But here's the thing: I wasn't much of a short movie person.
Right.
Growing up in the 70s and early 80s, particularly in the very early days of like HBO and Showtime, they would put up a lot of short films, which really kind of sucked. Well, most of them,
they did.
You know, and so I've always associated short films with that period in time. You know, right, wrong, or indifferent. Right. You know, that's just kind of how that went. And then when I saw it For Clearer Skies, you know, I mean, I was just blown away because it just was not like anything that I had seen in a short film before. And I
appreciate that.
Yeah. Where did the genesis for that come from?
Well, like most things having to do with me, a certain sense of anger. This time it was more of just being fed up with what people were looking for in film. Before I conjured up For Clearer Skies, I had done a feature film called Snow Angel. And the concept behind Snow Angel was about a man who climbed the ladder at work, fell down, was paralyzed, just paralyzed. And we were with him on the ground for 7 days. And the concept behind that was, technologically speaking, the camera didn't move. We were on the ground with him. It didn't look like a camera had fallen with him. It was just we were fixed on him. We didn't move. And, you know, people bitched and moaned, this is boring, this is nauseating, or this is whatever, which is precisely the point. Putting people in the shoes, in mobile shoes, mind you, of this character. So anyway, having done that film and, you know, people pissing and moaning about that, I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to make a film. It's going to have this sci-fi tinge to it. I'll still keep my own little bit of drama in there to make myself happy, but we'll have a little bit of this the science fiction element to it. And I, you know, try to figure out how I can make this film inside the only location I could get at the time, which was my Uncle Body Shop, which you've seen probably now in several of these films. And that is kind of the concept that came about. Invented an entire different language, which is consistent. So, you know, wherever there's repeated words, there's, you know, a consistency there. Wherever that race of being does not have a word to translate, they use the native word. So, you know, like in the film itself, they don't have a word for love, so they say it in English rather than their language, and so on and so forth. And yeah, so it was my first time really delegating heavily, getting a crew who could handle the effects, a crew who could make it look effective and realistic. And yeah, we haven't looked back since. It's been in rotation for over 2.5 years, and we played close to 40 festivals and all kinds of awards and fun stuff.
I was going to ask you about the language. Did you create the language yourself, or did you have a linguist or somebody do it?
No, entirely my own doing. I spent a couple days just, I had obviously the English translation, and then just kind of figured out and kind of sung it out loud, to be honest with you, at home. And how does this sound? And does that sound, kind of not stupid? And it really worked out that way. And one of the most interesting parts I find is that Charles Lamonto, who plays the male, obviously, he's like myself, where we have an Italian background. He speaks fluent Italian. And Kelly Marie, who plays his counterpart, she doesn't have a second language, which was perfect because she's more conditioned to the human way. Therefore, she would have lost her accent. And meanwhile, he spoke it with such brevity, and it really worked towards the characters. And it just also taught me how sometimes someone with a second language inherent within them could pick up an entirely new language made up or existing with a little bit of ease.
Good job with the language, because that really it sounded, I guess, well, as authentic as an alien language can sound, I suppose. Without actually having
I guess
heard one.
you know what, and I wanted to let me know if you do. No, but I wanted to showcase the language as well and the continuous tape that we use, because it would have been easy to cut the performance and hide their language within cuts and learn it one line at a time. But there are precisely 27 lines of dialogue, alien dialogue, and I think it's 27, but there's probably more. And anyway, we shot it continuously because we wanted it to seem like they're having a real, normal to them conversation, and I think it was very effective.
Well, and that leads into Cancer, which I thought there were some similarities, or some threads at least, between Cancer and For Clearer Skies. I'm sorry, I had a brain fart. Now, Cancer seems to be a fairly personal movie to you.
It turned out to be that way.
Do you want to talk about the dedication at the end of the movie?
Yeah, well, we shot the film in May 2012, and we had filmed at my grandfather's auto body shop, as we normally did. The film took roughly 2.5 years to complete because of many, many problems. A lot of people went through it. There was a lawsuit, which is still incomplete over it. So many, bullshit details that we had to go through. And in the process, my grandfather, a year after that, had contracted, or he had developed, that he had not one, not two, but 3 types of cancers. And by the time the film was done, he had passed on, and it really pissed me off because of the guys who delayed it so long. And truth be told, and I might be taking a risk saying this, but if I ever did see those people again, I was going to leave an ellipsis right there. Yeah, so it really kind of pissed me off. It pains me, but it angered me to have to put a dedication on a film that didn't need one, if you catch my drift. Yeah. But at the same time, I think that it was fitting. I didn't want it to be like a PSA, though. But it was nice. It was nice to have my grandfather up there on the big screen for the time that he was.
And Cancer is really a zombie movie where the zombies play a supporting role, which I thought was a little bit of a refreshing change.
Yeah, they did. I didn't want to pay attention to them. How many times have we seen that? I think, everywhere from anything Romero's done to The Walking Dead, it's very exhausting. And, we want to see them, but then when we see them, it's just like it's too much, or it's too much of the same. And it gets very, very taxing. So I thought that, budget aside, to show little to nothing of the zombies would be interestingly beneficial. And it was more about the people who were on the roof.
All right, and it's basically 2 people who are on the roof who are stuck up there because there are zombies that are down below. And right. This features Robert Nolan again, another great performance.
Yes, and by the way, Robert Nolan and Sarah, both in Cancer, actually have a little bit of a vocal role in For Clearer Skies as the 2 aliens when the alarm goes off.
Oh, right.
So that's actually them.
Oh.
Yeah, just a little tidbit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Being able to bring in some of the same actors you've worked with before. That has to make it a little bit easier filming.
Yeah, you get to know each other's sensibilities and styles and work ethics and all the pros and cons in between. And I think for the most part, I personally went to, worked with Robert, I think was it 5, 6 times, at least in the actor-director capacity, and many more in other roles. But I wouldn't have worked with him that many times if there was an issue or a clashing or anything like that. I mean, even Sarah Cunningham, after I worked with her in Cancer, or on Cancer, she came aboard for the last film that I did, Usher to the Usher. So I really like the recurring actor kind of thing. Same thing like like a Scorsese would do or a Tim Burton would do, which is not what I'm striving for. It's just you see why they do it.
Yeah. Oh, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Robert's character is just starving to death, and he's looking at her ankle.
You know what? That's actually my favorite scene.
It's so perfectly done, and I actually would rewound that a couple of times just to watch it again, because I really there was something about that scene I really enjoyed.
Right. Yeah, it's a personal favorite. It's obviously, well, as you know, it's a turning point. I think the little detail that it reveals is what I'm most proud about, because one of the things that I told my cinematographer was, and Robert, of course, is that we don't want to make it obvious, the reveal, right away. We want it to be so normal that if the audience is paying attention, they'll kind of feel like, wait a minute, is that a thing, or is that an error? And they don't know whether to laugh or to kind of like be serious about it. And then later on it's confirmed, so it works really well. But the lead up to the bite and everything, or to the ankle, is very it's effective. It works really well.
Right, because after that, and you do see the reveal, and I won't say what it is.
Right.
I looked at it and I thought, wait a minute, that there's something off here. And I thought, well, maybe he's foaming at the mouth for some, and I went through all these, ideas in my head, and then,
right,
we find out what happens. So that really was well done.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, again, it's one of those things where, just as a personal creative choice, I don't like to draw too much attention to something that is big, kind of like how you always heard, directors, Spielberg and all those directors talk about not showing, less is more and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of the same sort of ilk, where instead of adding a specific camera movement or a jump cut or an orchestral impact or something, it's just saying, here it is. This is normal. And it's one of the things that I try to recreate again in Usher, with a specific detail within the first 15 minutes of the film. And it's because the characters, like in Usher, but in Cancer, to them, this is normal, more or less. Therefore, it should behave normally. It's kind of like a conversation, right? I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. You and I have not addressed each other by name, nor would we, because we know who we're speaking to. But if, an amateur writer comes in, they would constantly write and say, am I right, Scott? Am I right, Alfredo? Am I right, Scott? Kind of like a reminder of, who's who and what's what. So it's the same thing when you're reviewing something. We don't need to say, here it is in all its glory. You just say, there it is, and you take it or leave it.
Yeah, it's a very matter of fact thing. And
right, exactly. I mean, it serves what they need to accomplish. That's for sure.
And there's very little background music, or none, if I remember correctly. It's been a couple of weeks since I've seen it.
Yeah, there's music in there. I think it's more of for the major dialogue pieces and for the little montage sequence that we have. But I mean, you're listening to basically 82 minutes of ambient zombie and wind and just life in that sense. So it's pretty steady that way. But as for music, yeah, nothing to. It's got a very just thinking of it right now, kind of like a No Country for Old Men kind of thing, where there's no music.
Now, you said it took 2.5 years to film that.
Or to finish it. Yeah, we had shot it over 5 days in the month of May, so 3 weekends. And the first cut was done, I would say, by the end of that June, so June 2012. And then we had the fine cut, or the official cut, it would become in November. And then it just fell into turmoil. It was issues with, our sound designer at the time. It was issues with the VFX at the time, or the VFX supervisor, and it was one thing after another, after another, after another, after another. And by that point, truth be told, I just fell out of love with it. I just wanted to move on, and eventually the film did get finished, and obviously world premiered rather, at the Macabre Fair, which was fantastic. So I think it became more about the people that I was working with on that, like people who actually, were there from the beginning, Robert, Sarah, and the entire Infected Horde. I mean, those people made it happen. We had a fundraising event in March 2013 called Fundraising the Dead, and all of them and their family and friends and my family and friends, everyone just came out and supported, and that's how we made the money to finish the film. So it's really kind of sort of like an homage to them than anything else.
Was that the tipping point for you when you just said, fuck it, this isn't worth it anymore?
Oh, yeah, hugely. I think I remember specifically where it was November the 2nd, 2013. I have a very good memory about things. I had left the VFX supervisor's home, what turned out to be for the last time. I had gone to review the work that had to be done, and every time I went back, it seemed like more issues were coming up, but not issues that were problem-solving issues, just issues with, I don't want to do this, or kind of excuses I was getting. And, by that point, it was, to find someone else, to bring them up to speed again, and to, get them to work in their time, all these different variables, so many things that I just really didn't want to deal with it anymore. I remember walking home, because the person lived a short while away from me, and I decided I don't want to do this anymore. And for 3 months, I was officially done. And then I went to the Macabre Fair in January 2014, and everyone was asking me, well, hey, Alfredo, what do you got going on next? What do you got going on next? And I guarantee you, when you ask a filmmaker that, you never hear them say, oh, nothing. They will say whatever they can to get your attention and say, oh, I exist and I have something else, whether it's 1 or 15,000 things. It bothered me that I was going there with a literal nothing. I just kind of played it cool, and I said, oh, well, we're finishing Cancer, which was true, but that was it. So when I hopped the bus to go back to Toronto, I was thinking about, what am I really going to do, really do? And I kind of got a little bit of a buzz off of the Macabre Fair. And so thank you, Elsie and Adam, for that. They know. I came up with the film Usher the Usher, which was based off of a 2009 short script. Funny enough, Robert Nolan had actually found the script that I had sent him on his hard drive, which mine was dead, and sent it over to me. So it worked out perfectly where I rewrote off of that. Yeah, started preparing the film all the way up until our shooting dates in July, and we shot for 8 days over 2 weeks. And once again, I just kind of like fell into a slump where I don't even know if I really enjoy this. I feel like I'm on autopilot. And I would tell Marc-Andre Miron, my co-producer, who's more of a great friend than anything else, where I said to him, I'm not going to abandon you, but I've abandoned film. And we're going to finish the film, but I'm just not in it anymore. And, him and so many other people were, not too sure. I've cried wolf before. Is he really telling the truth? Why would you? You've come off a great year and all this kind of stuff. And, it didn't matter, right? I looked at film kind of like a supermodel that had nothing upstairs. And I know that's a cliche and it probably offended a whole category of people, but that's the way I look at it.
Send the letters to Alfredo Salvatore Arcilesi, not me.
Yeah, hey, why not, right? I mean, I've made films about pedophiles and I post videos about skinned animals, so send them my way. But yeah, I fell out of love with it, and this time it was for certain. I felt it, and yeah, I just wasn't there anymore.
Do you have like a sense of loss, feeling that?
Like sort of like an emptiness.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, 'cause this is
no, I
something
think
that you've done for quite a few years. You've put a lot of hard work into it. I think if it were me, I probably would feel like a sense of sadness almost. You know, giving up something that I love.
right.
You know, but it's almost like ending a bad relationship, I suppose.
Absolutely. I'll say this to you. It's like my grandfather, right? Like I'm 30 years old, right? He was 83. So it's kind of like him and I were very close, but I didn't feel like I felt the loss. Obviously, I was very, sad by it. But I think I would have felt it completely differently, whether I fully understood it or not, if I were younger. It would feel more abrupt to me. I didn't have time, and so on and so forth. But as an adult, I kind of felt that, well, I had, my time with him. I, learned from him and he learned from me and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like I was conditioned into the loss. I was prepared for it. Same thing with film, right? It was kind of like, I didn't just wake up, let's just say this, Scott. I didn't wake up and say, I'm done. It was a conditioning. It was slowly fermenting. And then eventually I had this wine bottle of I'm done. And then I felt kind of like coming out of the closet with it. So the more and more I told people, who didn't believe me, of course, but then the more that they saw it, the better it was that I felt. Not that I needed their convincing or I needed their criticism of it. It was just that I needed to come to terms with that. And the first time around, it lasted for 3 months. Then I quickly snapped out of it the moment that, I went to a film festival. But this past festival, I went to the Macaque Fair again, and I was surrounded by everybody. I had a world premiere of a feature film. I was a judge at the festival, accepting awards on other people's behalf. No matter what, I didn't feel it this time. I didn't feel compelled to sit on that bus again and come up with like Usher the sequel. So it was very, I guess, well timed for my own clock.
And so now it's strictly the novel writing.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know, like the novel. It's kind of like that. I don't know. It's kind of like that girl from elementary school that you didn't pay any attention to, and then years later you're like, wow, there she is, right? So that's exactly what the novel writing is like. It's kind of like revisiting an old friend and then just being like, yeah, you've been there the whole time. Why didn't I, properly acknowledge you or respect you? And it's been great. I've been writing for the past 2 solid months, the novel, and it's great. I've done more in 2 months than I probably had in a year.
Well, there's definitely a sense or feeling of accomplishment with that. Good thing about novel writing is you don't have to worry about a budget. If you want to blow up a world, you can blow up a world and not have to worry about if you have the money to do it.
Exactly. I think that, we had chatted a little bit about this. Yeah, there's no budget. I think one of the greatest things is waking up. Actually, let me just say it this way. I've had this conversation with my family, my mom, my brother, my sister, and even my dad. We were talking about it before I went to New York. I said to them, my day now consists of waking up and going to the computer and, living. It's not waiting to live. Because before it was, I need to wait for this response. I need to wait for this money to come through, this location to come through, and this prop, and this, and not that, and people not caring. And a lot of the times it was communication about loss of communication, where I was struggling to remind people that I had sent them a thing from a while back, and all this mess. It was just a stupid mess, and it made me feel like I was like demoting myself as a creative person. So, one of the running gags we have now in my household, when something's going wrong, and with film or whatever for other people or all that kind of stuff, I'm not making fun of these people. But what I am saying is, the gag is that, well, don't worry. Today you're writing your novel. And what that means is yeah, no, it means that we are, like, I'm working, now I'm really working. I'm putting the pedal, to the metal for something that I really enjoy doing. And, film was just something that I think was a really prolonged phase. And I needed, like I told you earlier, an outlet. I had my fill of that. And, the novel writing is something that, I feel great about. I'm not looking forward at the moment, to making copious amounts of money or to get, this number one bestseller, moniker or anything like that. I just want to write the fucking thing.
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
So because with film, I felt like I had reached a certain point where I should be possibly gaining something else. Okay, what's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? And that may sound entitled, but, we keep hearing about paying dues and all that crap. But it was just like, I think, it should be a little bit different, now. There should be a little bit of a change in guard. And there wasn't. So for, again, many reasons, I just don't, feel it for film. And novels, it's been great.
Well, rather than ask about your favorite filmmakers, let's talk about some of your favorite writers then. Who are the writers that you go back to continuously?
Well, it's actually funny because I'm probably going to throw in a couple of screenwriters in there too. But let's just get I think one of the most obvious out of I'm a huge Stephen King fan. Enjoy his work. I'm also a Mario Puzo fan. Actually, not of The Godfather. I thought The Godfather was a quite boring novel. I thought the film itself obviously speaks for itself. But I love Mario's work. Something about the landscapes and everything, the images that he paints and whatnot. Writing again in general. I'm a Tarantino fan. I'm amazed that he gets away, with the amount of dialogue that he does, because people have a huge issue with dialogue and not wanting to be spoken to or at. So kudos to him. I like Akiva Goldsman. I like Robert Towne as a screenwriter as well. So those are kind of like my main go-to. And I think I'm forgetting one. I might pop in later on and tell you what that is, but I think there's another one I'm just leaving out.
If you remember, like you said, just pop it on in. What is? I was actually looking at your page, and I'm looking at Marigold. Is that something new, or is that something that you'd worked on previously, or?
Yeah. So wow, I actually haven't thought of Marigold for a little while. It's actually the last completed screenplay that I had worked on. So Marigold is kind of like a feature film version of For Clear Skies, in the sense that For Clear Skies was my way of saying, okay, you guys want this, then I'll do that. With Marigold, after shooting Usher the Usher, there was TIFF, Toronto Film Festival, going on in my own backyard. So I attended some of those screenings. I attended 14 days worth of another concurrent film festival called the Toronto Independent Film Festival. And I started to, see more and more this love of horror and, sci-fi. And not to mention that I spent pretty much the last couple of years attending these festivals with For Clear Skies. But I started to talk to distributors as well. And I asked them, I go, what are you guys looking for? Let's be honest. Well, Alfredo, horror or something comedic or, family oriented. Well, I don't do the other half of that, so I'm going to, tackle the horror part of it. And I decided to put something forward in the horror genre, and with my own little, dramatic twist. And once again, we have all these creative types who are like, I'll read anything and I'll do anything and I'll produce anything, and, nothing's too dark for me. And then little old Alfredo comes out of nowhere with Marigold, and people are squeamish. I can't get past the first 10 pages. I'm confused about this, and yada, yada, that. And that's what it ended up becoming. So it exists as a script and nothing more. But that'll definitely receive the novel treatment once I'm done with the first one.
That's exactly what I was going to ask, was if that was going to be become a novel sooner or later.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I got to credit Michael Dixon. He's an actor who I met here in Toronto at the Blood in the Snow Film Festival, and he was in a film called Black Mountainside. And he and I, we had, it's funny how things work out. I'll say this because I had seen him in the movie theater, and a friend of mine pointed him out, and he said, oh, look, Alfredo, there's you in like 20 years, because he looked very similar to me in hair and all that stuff. And when we were at the after party, I approached him. I congratulated him, and then all these paparazzi came out and started snapping photos because again, everyone thought we were kind of 20-year apart twins. And yeah, so long story short, I really thoroughly enjoyed his work in the film, which was like a Canadian nod to the Thing. And anyway, started talking to him on Facebook, and I had sent him Marigold. I said, well, what do you think of this? Because, you've done a horror film. What do you think of that? And he told me, he goes, well, it reads like a novel. Not that there was like novel-esque, things going on, like, epic writing or anything like that. It was just the content itself. And I said, you know what, that's obvious. I'm holding back so much with Marigold, and it goes all the way back to what I told you earlier, where I'm holding back all the time from, what I can be saying. I know a lot of writers suffer from writer's block. I'm going to toot my own horn here. I don't. I have too much to say, and I know how to say it, and I know the aggression that can go along with it. There's always aggression there. So to put it in a script, it's like telling a 40-pound story in a 20-pound bag.
I don't think you're tempting fate by saying you don't have writer's block now, are you?
Well, you never know. I actually just totally forgot what I had to say right now. No, I'm kidding. No, you never know. I just think that I love those triggers, right? I mean, even right now, me talking to you, I've, come up with a couple of ideas for what it is I have to write. You have something that you want to expand upon, and then you kind of go from there. So it just kind of, it's always the mind that keeps on rolling, and that's just kind of how I operate. So for me, it's 24/7.
Well, excuse me, I'm going to wrap this up. And normally I ask what advice you would have for a filmmaker. But I guess for you, I'll just ask, what advice do you have somebody who has a creative streak in them?
Well, the first thing I'll say is don't listen to anybody, and not even me. Just do what you're going to do. I think a major problem that I faced was starting to veer off my own path. And one of the analogies I like to use is, when you're driving, right? It's okay to look to the left and right of you to see what's going on, obviously, to get your surroundings. But if you hold left or hold right for too long, you're going to miss out, where you're going, and then you're going to crash. And that was something that, I had to be careful about. So I would tell anyone who has this, creative, moxie about them to just, it sounds so cliche and fortune cookie to say, to really hold their own, honestly. And, for every 10 things people say, maybe, pluck one or two out of those and try to move on from there.
Sounds like some good advice. And Alfredo, I appreciate your being on the show. It's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it.
No, thank you. It was great.
And you can learn more about Alfredo's work from the links that we're going to have on the website. And also, if you enjoy the Imaginarium, check out our other shows on the Supernauts Network at thesupernauts.com. And until next time, may all your journeys be filled with pure imagination.